Novi Library Board meeting to order, and I would ask everyone to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Trustee Cherukuri. Present. Trustee Crawford.
Here.
Trustee Dooley.
Here.
Trustee Guru-Murthy.
Here.
Trustee Mitchner.
Present, thank you.
Trustee Stirring.
Present.
Trustee Bartlett is here. Student Representative Karkarla.
Here.
And Student Representative Salim.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And moving along, are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
A second.
Stirring and Dooley. All right, Secretary Bartlett, please call the roll.
Trustee
I forgot
Crawford?
to ask for oh no, never mind. I'm ahead of myself. Go ahead.
Trustee Crawford.
Yes.
Trustee Dooley.
Yes.
Trustee Guru-Murthy.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner.
Yes.
Trustee Stirring.
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes. Trustee Cherukuri.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. I was going to ask if there's any discussion, but I'm trying to do it all properly, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
Well,
doing the
thank
right
you.
thing.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Motion to approve as printed.
Okay?
I second.
Dooley and Cherukuri, I believe I saw first. I looked to the right. My neck is stiff, so, all right. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Trustee Dooley.
Yes.
Trustee Guru-Murthy.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner.
Yes.
Trustee Stirring.
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes. Trustee Cherukuri.
Yes.
Trustee Crawford.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. We don't have any presentations today, and it's time for our first public comment. So in order to hear all citizen comments at a reasonable hour, the Library Board requests that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit. This is not a question-answer session. However, it is an opportunity to voice your thoughts with the Library Board. Citizens must state their first, last name, and address.
Hi, I'm Sharon Trumpy. Just looking over the agenda, I had a few things I wanted to comment on. First, I wanted to congratulate April Stevenson on her new position. From my interactions with April at the library, it is well-deserved, but it's a real loss for Novi. I was also really happy to see that the DEI committee has finally met again. I'm thrilled by that, and from their goals, looks like they had a productive meeting, so I'm really looking forward to that report. I will say I'm a little confused even looking at Lee Meadows' revised letter, what purpose that served, why we were waiting for that step to have the DEI committee resume, but I'm glad that it has resumed. I also just wanted to point out, I see that you're going to be discussing fine-free tonight, and I'm thrilled with that motion. I did want to mention that when I was looking over that section of the packet, that there was a section on lost items and the increase in lost items, and in case any of the newer trustees are not aware of the difference between fine and fees, we're talking about fine-free, not fee-free, and fees remain in place even when you eliminate fines, so lost items would still be covered through the fees. So I certainly don't see that as an impediment to continuing with the fine-free. And I think that at this time, that is all I had to share. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else? All right then, seeing none, we'll go on with the student reports. And I don't know if it will be Rita or Abhay going first.
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll begin with the tween and teen library programs. The Grab and Go Air Terrarium Kit was passed out on March 5th. Teens could register to Grab and Go Kit with supplies to make and care for your own air plant terrarium. Air plants are amazing species that plant enthusiasts of all types can enjoy. and the attendance was 36. There was also a virtual SAT practice test program held on March 12th, which was a free, full-length proctored online SAT practice test at the courtesy of college nannies plus tutors. There were 15 people in attendance. And Teach Back session as a follow-up SAT test was held on March 25th, and there was 8 people in attendance for that. The Between the Pages Teen Book Club Trivia Program was held on March 16th. Guests read The First Rule of Punk by Celia Perez and answered trivia questions relating to the book. There were 7 people in attendance. The Tail Wagging Reading Buddies program was held on March 23rd, and it is an opportunity to provide a comfortable and non-judgmental space for a child and their family if they desire to read to a therapy dog to encourage the child's reading skills, confidence, and their love for reading. There were 20 people in attendance.
For the Teen Space update, during March of 2022, there were 124 guests who visited Teen Space. There was no Teen Space on March 7th, March 11th, or March 28th through April 1st. For our Teen Advisory Board update, the 7th TAB meeting for the 21 to 2022 school year was held on March 25th. The meeting started with a welcome and an icebreaker to help get to know each other. Following the welcome, the members talked about the March is Reading Month and shared books that have made a lasting impact. Miss Lindsay, the library staff liaison, shared information on how members could suggest material suggestions on the library's website for teen fiction books if the library does not already own a copy. The members finished their meeting by making appreciation cards for the upcoming National Library Week. The attendance for this meeting was 5 people. For our upcoming programs, the STEAM Leap into Science program, WIND, is May 3rd. Between the Pages Tween Book Club Trivia is May 18th, and the title is A Place to Belong by Cynthia Kadahota. The Tailwagon Reading Buddies is on May 25th, and our next TAB meeting is May 27th. For a Teen Stop featured display to celebrate Women's History Month, the March Teen Stop display featured young adult fiction books about feminism and female characters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion after the reports? Anyone have any comments?
Great job.
Yeah, as always.
As usual, great
As
job.
always. Nice.
I like that you're getting so many people and so many young people and other people involved, so that's great. That's really good, so. All right, moving along to the president's report. After our last meeting, it seemed to me that Dr. Meadows' presentation was not as specific as anticipated, and I suspect that there are some people here at the board table that felt the same way as I did. I called Dr. Meadows and I asked if he could expand his suggestions in some way, especially as it related to onboarding and building blocks. So Dr. Meadows was very accommodating, and he provided the document, which is on page 14 through 17. His additional suggestions will be discussed further with the HR committee. I myself, and we'll be discussing this later on, but I don't believe that there's any need to add another board committee related to onboarding. The Human Resources Committee will address the issue and will bring forward a plan of action as needed. One future activity that I am pursuing, based on Dr. Meadows' suggestion, and it will be sooner rather than later, will be an additional board development and training. That's one thing that I would like to do very soon. So that's the end of my report, except we will move on to, we added an item to the agenda, trustee information, and Trustee Mitchner has something to share regarding National Library Week.
I did, but I wanted to actually piggyback on your report if I could I made some notes about Dr. Meadows' updates. If I could talk about that, I made some notes. Because there were a few things in there I have questions about.
Okay,
So I wanted to bring those to attention first and looking through the packet. And you answered the first.
could you make sure that you put those in writing and then submit them so that we'll need it for the minutes? If you have comments to make about the letter or whatever.
Barb, can you write the notes as I say them? Because I want to make sure it's public, so I'm doing my due diligence as a board member.
That's fine, that's
Okay.
fine.
So if you don't mind writing them, that'd be awesome. So the first question you answer, which is awesome, so we're head start, which is what triggered the update from Dr. Meadows. So I do appreciate your thought process and what you shared. I did have a concern with the note that he made about trying to involve the city of Novi in our orientation packet. And the reason why is because the mayor obviously appoints all of us, which I think is really important. But outside of that, the cool thing about this library system and the category that we are in is that we govern ourselves. And that, from my understanding, as I continue to get more versed in this work and in library industry, it's so important to hold strong to that and to not give away our power as a board. And I definitely hear you not being interested in the onboarding ad hoc committee, but I think if you're not interested in that, I definitely wouldn't want people who weren't appointed telling us what to do. So that's my 2 cents there, that I want to make sure gets out there. I think it's super important. As far as the mentoring part, I think this point has some merit and could have avoided some of the recent issues. And this is specifically speaking to his suggestion in regards to, allowing new members to kind of take their time and get mentored along before getting thrust into things. Last year I heard a lot of people saying, but I'm new. This is a lot. I'm still learning. Even last month, I almost called you Dr. Story. Look at that. I gave you a promotion. Well, Juris Doctor, right? But he's a lawyer. But Mark Storing even mentioned, hey, I'm trying to get prepared here. You're giving me a lot. Let me kind of get my bearings. So that being said, I think it does make sense to, maybe not appoint even for chairs right away as soon as people get appointed. And I noticed, I'm using you as an example again, but I noticed you're policy chair, but you just got here too. So that's just a thought. So to that point, that might make some sense. And I know typically you say that you want to make sure everybody has a chair position, but obviously Trustee Murphy doesn't have a chair position yet. So that's just something to throw out there for consideration. The second one about the board source, I thought that was the main reason why we hired him. So I thought that was interesting that he actually suggested that we hire another organization to train us. If we were looking to that, I would strongly suggest us look into library organizations. They just had Julie probably knows about this, they just had the Texas Library Association conference, and they hadn't had one in 3 years in person. It was a big deal. And some of the things they're talking about are things that we're actually talking about like day to day. So I think we can learn a lot from our colleagues, not just in Michigan, but across, the country and beyond. So I'm not against more training for sure, but I think we want to do that with people who understand libraries, if that makes sense. And also even the way our board works, which might be different than other boards. As far as the PR campaign of highlighting our major board accomplishments, I don't know. I mean, I think we do that really well in, let's see, Engage, where you have the Beyond Books section. Obviously, we're involved in a lot of other collaborations. I don't know if our board needs to take time to actually just go around and say what we've done. So I wasn't sure about that piece as much. I don't know that that's really necessary. I think that could be a little self-patting on the back as opposed to getting the work done and listening to our actual people that have things to say. So that is all I had for that.
Okay, the other thing you wanted to speak about was National Library Week?
Yep. So, okay, guys. So, you all, I'm trying to stop saying guys. I've been told it is not the best to say because it just gives one gender, and we want to make sure that we're addressing everybody. So, just correcting myself there. So I'll say hi, you all. All right. So it was just Library Week, National Library Week, early in April. It was a big deal. There's a lot of really fun things happening. In regards to it, I got to be a guest at the Library of Michigan. So they hosted me and gave me a tour. Got to get a lot of really good information. They featured me on their site. But being there, I got to ask a lot of really good questions. And I think that's the cool thing that they mentioned, that all trustees are welcome to asked to be able to do similar things. So that wasn't just because I'm so special, right? Anybody can do that. I also wanted to say with Library Week, I've been able to talk to a lot of people that I met at PLA, and they had a lot of really cool things to say about things happening in their systems. Specifically, some of the things that are happening that I think we're doing a good job at, and I asked Julie about a lot of libraries are concerned about banned books and burning books. And that's not happening here. I asked Julie about it, and she confirmed we just had like one challenge and that didn't even get to board level. So I wanted to celebrate us for that. I think that's a good thing, because across the industry, that is not the case. I do have some fun things for you. I have gifts. These are from Library Michigan for you all. Take one and pass it down. They're heavy. They are for the trustees. Can you, they're heavy. I apologize.
More reading material.
Yes, they're fun things. So you get a little Library of Michigan bag. I didn't go there and just think of myself. All right, so y'all, we have.
Thank you.
We have difficult conversations, how to discuss what matters most, which I think is good, because, you know, sometimes we do have hard talks. We have Robert Rules for Dummies. These are yours. These are all your things. And then the Complete Library Trustee Handbook. So these are all for you guys. And that's just a thing that I was able to scout out and get for everybody, but I thought that's kind of a nice little way for us even to continue to stay versed. There's a lot of good resources out there, and if you see stuff while you're out and about, just share it too. That was all I was gonna say. The Robert's Rules thing is especially good because I found out that somehow I'm checked out for 2. Which I'm like, I asked Julie about it, and she's like, yeah, you're checked out twice. I'm like, I gotta figure that out. At least I got the dummies book just in case I lose the other 2, wherever they are at. But that's all. I just wanted to give us something a little bit positive because there was Library Week, and I was trying to figure out what I could do to kind of celebrate us because we are library professionals. That's it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you kind of, you're setting the bar a little high for those of us that may go to other conferences and that you'll be all expecting goodie bags back from wherever we've been or on vacation or whatever. So, yeah, but thank you very much. We all need our own Robert's Rules for sure. Okay. And now the treasurer's report. Our new treasurer was going to tell us everything we wanted to know.
There's a number of color-coded pages, starting at page 19, but usually the treasury report, just the spoken part is just reviewing on page 22. So that's where we're tracking. So you can see, we originally approved a budget with a projected deficit of 165, in the 268 fund, and 10,900 in the 269 fund. Year to date, we're actually, it's always weird because money comes in earlier than spending goes out, so things seem to be tracking pretty well. Yeah, I think the only interesting thing I saw curiously is that you saw our total revenues actually go down, and that's an offset in the investment account, which rarely happens because we're investing in basic treasuries, so I think we can blame Mr. Putin for that or something. So. So I think those are kind of the big highlights.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or any comments about the treasurer's report? Good job. Okay, thank you very much. All right, director's report.
Thank you. I'll start on page 29. I want to recognize some staff anniversaries that are coming up in May. Gail Anderson from the Information Services Department, she is our programming coordinator. She will be celebrating 6 years. Jessica Holowicki from Information Technology, she's actually a technology assistant in our iCube, and she'll be celebrating 1 year. And Nicole Williams from our administration, who is now our HR specialist, she'll be celebrating 1 year in May. So we're very excited and congratulate all of those staff members. I'm happy to entertain any questions in regard to the report. I think everything was pretty well explained. If there's anything that I can address, I'm here to do that for you.
I just made a few notes.
Sure.
I just wanted to acknowledge April, and I know somebody
Yes.
beat me to it, which is cool because she deserves that acknowledgement. So I wanted,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I
We're
wanted.
very excited for her.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It is.
I know she helped you so much. That's a big
She's-
loss, right?
Yes, it's a huge loss.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very huge loss.
So tell our audience where she's going.
Sure. She has accepted the director's job for the White Lake Township Library. Very excited for her, her next step in her career. Is it a loss for us? It is 11 wonderful years that April's been here. She's built a great team, great staff members, a lot of outreach, customer service. These were things that were big projects and things that made a big impact on our organization. So she learned a lot, and now we'll take that with her and will, I know, be very successful where she goes. I have already posted the position just because with summer reading coming and how needed, we need that position to be filled. Plus, we do have some staff shortages still already. So we wanted to move that as quickly as possible. I appreciate April because she was willing to stay on a full month with us. She'll leave on the 20th of May, but I really appreciate her staying as long as she could before she took on that position. That just shows, I truly believe, the commitment that she did have and does have to our organization. So I do appreciate that. But we will miss her.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful stamp she has left on our organization.
I agree, for sure. I just wrote, first I want to thank April for all the great work she and her team and information services provided. And then I just noted Meadows Elementary after hours event with 497 people in attendance. That's a big deal. Especially during these times, you don't get that many people congregating, right? Met with dear Asian youth Novi reps to plan programs for AAPI month, which I really celebrate that. Met with Abbey Hills Homeowners Association, added cultural reads book list to our book list pages, helped with 2022 Village Oaks Battle of the Books program. She did have me do that one year, from a speaker standpoint, which is a lot of fun. If you've never been able to be a guest at the Battle of the Books, please ask if you can do it because it's really intense, right? And then second, all this just made me sad because she's leaving, but I do think it's a big deal for her, and I think she's going to do a great job. And White Lake's not that far, so we can always visit other libraries sometimes, right?
I don't get to separate from her because now I'll get to see her as a director colleague. So I feel very blessed. She's not leaving us, in that sense, so, which is great.
Yes, you are lucky.
I am.
So that's all I had.
Okay, Director Farkas, maybe you could also share our challenges right now with hiring. Maybe you could explain how many openings we do have and a little bit about that
So
people know.
the biggest challenge right now with staffing is in the Information Services Department, which, where April is currently head of. So with her leaving, what we did is we decided the postings had just gone out, so we pulled them. I'd like to fill her position first and then allow the opportunity of the new department head then to build a team. I think that makes better sense. So we actually will have, when April leaves, we're going to have over 100 hours of public service time. The struggle that I'm seeing, and Trustee Mitchner, you're on Michelab all the time. I know you're probably seeing, and definitely with TLN, you're seeing a lot of library positions. We're, for the first time, in competition with each other. Normally, I would put out postings, get wonderful resumes, and not have the competition out there. There are a lot of library positions right now, full-time, part-time. And so that's going to be our challenge, is to attract, knowing that there's so many options and opportunities out there right now. Normally, we don't have that competition. But I feel very confident. The position's been out a week. I already know that we've received some postings. I'll start working with Nicole next week because I'm going to start reviewing them. We didn't put a date to be filled. So as they come in, we're going to look at them and interview. And I have an interview team put together already, and move as quickly as we can with finding the best candidate.
Will it change in scope at all, the position title, from a succession standpoint,
No, we did add a few more things that over, the few years that April's been with us that, was taken on and became responsibilities though. So we made it, we definitely, this time when I posted it, it had a lot more depth and breadth to it to explain all of what this job entails. So I didn't want anyone coming in with any false, do you know what I mean, ideas of what the job is. It's a big job. It's definitely a lot, 20 staff. So so we put those types of details in right away.
is that department head? Is that?
It is a
the name of
department
it?
head,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yep.
All right.
I have a couple of comments, if I may. I just wanted to take a moment to say, first of all, congratulations to April.
Yes.
And I've had this wonderful privilege to work with her directly in order to launch the Be Active bag. So she's just an amazing inspiration, not only for us, but for little kids as well. So,
Yes.
yeah, good luck to her. The second thing is I did see the job posting in LinkedIn. So one of the things I think as us we can do is share in our network. So
Please do.
Yes, yep. So I will.
It hit Mishlib, it hit TLN, it hit LinkedIn, which then broadens, goes even further.
Yeah.
Through the software that we use for posting. So it's out there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody, yes,
Yeah, I just have a
trustee
quick question.
Sure.
Sure.
You mentioned you're about $100 short on, as a capacity of a percentage of what that department should be. What are we running at right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can send you that. I don't have it off the top of my head, and I don't want to ballpark it, but that's a large amount. I mean, you're talking 2 full-time and a part-time position. So,
Out of how many people normally?
well, there's 20 typically in the staff, so 10%.
Okay, and all
Yep.
these openings, is there what are you attributing that to across the industry? Is there a generational change happening, or?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen retirements, so, and because of COVID, I've seen people decide to leave their positions. I mean, we've seen just loss in the industry, actually. I don't know what those answers are. I haven't been able to ask people, why are you leaving, when I see them, but those positions are out there.
No, this is the great resignation period. I don't know if, because not
Yes.
just the library, everywhere people are hunting or.
Yes.
Yeah, and the HR team is so busy.
Yeah, we have been super busy.
That being said, though, it might be a good thought, and I don't know if this is HR committee more so than all of us, but recommendations are welcome. I think we can think about what we can do to make sure that our staff is feeling good so that they don't want to leave, because there's so many more options. My mom is retired, but yeah, right, she still works. 2 jobs, but that's my mama. But we were talking about like some of her responsibilities, and she was just saying that she keeps getting offers, and she's like, I think I'm not supposed to be working this much, and I keep getting more people asking me to work. And I think she realizes that never before has she had so many people coming to her with like, oh, well, we can give you, you're making this, we can do this, and we can throw in this perk. So I'm just wondering, what are we doing to look different in 2022 than we looked in like maybe 2019?
Right.
From a perks perspective, even if it's not monetary, is it something else that we can do that may be attractive? Just something to throw out there to stay competitive.
Okay, yes,
Well, I did want to say, for trustee Mishner, you're correct, and HR did talk about that. One of the things in my industry, in the communications industry for corporate communications is, we're kind of looking at who the key stakeholders are in every organization. And because of COVID, there's been a massive shift where it's not just, if you're thinking private sector, it's not just who brings in your revenue. It's actually the employees that are now the key stakeholders. And so in my industry specifically, we're talking about, how to have more communication strategies, transparency, and things like that. And so that's something that we did discuss. So we are kind of talking about that with staff for sure. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's important.
Thank you.
okay.
I
Anyone
think
else?
that private enterprise is suffering the same issues with a shortage of help and difficulty in finding staff. I don't think the library is alone in that issue
No,
today because
right.
it's pretty much across the board.
I agree. Yeah, it's just the first time we're really seeing it.
Yeah.
We've,
Everybody's stepping it up.
yes. Woo, yeah.
It is a low turnover industry historically, right? So.
Ours, in certain areas, yes, but we typically have a high turnover in our circulation department and our support services because it's heavily part-time. Yeah, that's where we see, but that, knock on wood, has slowed down a little bit. It's the first time we're seeing actually our professional staff. So, and then filling those positions. So, yeah.
I personally think too, and I'm hearing from friends of mine that are still working and all that saying that due to COVID and people having the opportunity to stay home, and a lot of them are thinking, you know what, I'd really think I'd like to continue working from home. Maybe I'd like to start my own business. There are a lot more startups. There's a lot. The culture actually seems to had a shift. There seems to be a shift in the way people are thinking about work. And so, I think we have to look for creative solutions, as always.
Right.
And you do exit interviews, don't you?
We do.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we do.
So, if they're being honest about why they're leaving, hopefully we'll learn something in the process, correct? Okay, anything else? All right, moving along. We are now going to have our second public comment. And so in order to hear all citizens' comments at a reasonable hour, the library board requests that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit. This is not a question and answer session. However, it's an opportunity to voice your thoughts with the library board. Citizens must state their first, last name, and address.
Hi, Sharon Trumpy again. As I was sitting and looking through the agenda, I just noticed something that I had missed. Under Matters for Library Board Action, you're having your officer slate tonight, and I see that there's only one position that is challenged, which is the vice president with Kat Dooley and Mark Stirring. Zero respect meant to you, Mr. Stirring. I'm sure that you are a lovely person. I will just mention that this library board has had a lot of issues around DEI in the past year, and I would certainly support having your DEI chair as vice president. And it's also striking to me when I look at the table to see that there's 3 women of color at your table. And if Kat Dooley is not your vice president, that means the only people who are not serving in an officer capacity would be your 3 women of color. And I think it's important, if you are serious about addressing DEI issues, to make sure that those voices are present in your discussions. So I would hope that Kat Dooley will be reappointed as vice president. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Board. Jason Mishner, Novi resident. I just wanted to say congratulations to April as well. I know myself and my son Cannon will definitely miss seeing her around on the first floor. But it's really good to hear that she's moving on to a director appointment, so that's really cool. She definitely deserves it. I wanted to say, Julie, I don't know how many of our residents know how amazing the book window is. I used that for the first time last week, and you literally call, you ask the information desk what books, they'll go and pick them out for you. You don't have to get online or do it. You just pick up the phone, call, tell them the books, they put them in a bag. You set up a pickup time, which in my case was usually an hour or two after I called. Then you drive to the library, you stop at the window, they're like, "Hi, Jason." They hand you a bag of books and you drive away. It is amazing. And literally, I think my son read through the whole Big Nate series available in the library in like the course of 4 days. And I was back every day just refilling like 4 or 5 books. But that is an amazing service. I knew it existed. I didn't know how amazing it was till I tried it. So if you haven't done it, you got to do it. I also wanted to say it's really cool to see the DEI committee back and to see how much work you guys were able to accomplish in just one meeting. And I thought it was fantastic that I love the idea of everybody getting free trainings. I know corporately I have to do a lot of those trainings, and they're usually quite helpful. So I thought that was a great idea. And I also thought it was really cool to see how in several instances now you're looking to the LAA to see what they're doing. One for the diversity report card. I thought that was really cool that you're following their standards. And then you're also looking to use the LAA as a benchmark for some of the other work you do. So I think that was really cool and encouraging. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention with the fine-free, I'm really encouraged that is up for a vote tonight. And as far as my opinion goes, I'm definitely full-heartedly in support of supporting fine-free for the library. I think that would be fantastic. A lot of the other libraries in the network that my family goes to are also fine-free. And again, sometimes most of the books that I take out on my card are for my son. And sometimes it's a little hard to locate where he puts them after he finishes them. So I definitely appreciate the fine-free aspect. It definitely helps out a lot. And it just makes that transaction a whole lot easier. I'm not so worried if it's on his card or my card. I know we'll get them back. And it's just nice to not have to pay a couple of bucks every time I come back to the library for those books that happen to walk away for a couple of days. So really appreciate that, and I hope that will pass tonight. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving along to committee reports, if the chair of the committee has anything else to add other than what was in the packet? Anyone wish to say anything? Yes, Chairman Dooley?
So I am going to start real quick with the events marketing and fundraising committee meeting. And all the notes are 64 to 65. Thank you, Julia, for putting everything in the packet. One of the big things I wanted to just mention was the Readbox fundraiser. It was an experiment. We really wanted to try to think outside of the box, no pun intended, to fundraise for MPL. Because I think a lot of people in the public may or may not know that they can give monetary donations and things like that to MPL. Also, we have the amazing Friends of the Novi Library, which we're really blessed to have, who are actually the 501c3 arm. And they do a lot of amazing things to help us as a library provide the amenities that we do to the community. So it's almost done. I think it's done now, actually. Tomorrow, yeah. I was like, wait a minute, what day is it? And unfortunately, we didn't get too many people bidding, but it was fun to try. And I'm always somebody that's like, hey, you got to try it. And it's not necessarily always going to be a success, but you have to try. So we probably won't be revisiting it next year, but I am really happy and looking forward to seeing who won. And I hope that when they do install the read boxes, that they'll take a picture and send it to the library so we can promote that. But I wanted to thank everybody on staff who worked really hard for that. I know that we had a staff member actually physically build those. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Keith.
And that's Keith Perfect.
It's
Yes.
Keith, yeah.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate Keith's work. He did an amazing job. But it was worth trying. So I just wanted to mention that. Yes, Trustee Commissioner.
You all did a great job.
Thanks.
And I know that it didn't get the fanfare that you wanted, but you only had a month, and April was bananas for so many people.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, like, next year, if we have that gala that we typically have for Friends, that will probably be a really good, Ms. Mark, you've been to that before. That's a really good place to display those boxes, don't you think? Like as a little raffle or something. So you never know, that might be a nice way to highlight it. I think it just didn't get the eyes on it the way that we wanted. I think if it's at an event, it'll get like some fanfare. So I don't want you to get discouraged.
Thanks.
It was a really good idea.
Thank you. We're still talking about other ideas. I think I've mentioned it on the dais about more of like an adult scholastic book fair. I don't know how else to call it. It's not adult content. It's just You're welcome. It's scholastic, like with the nostalgia of scholastic. When our children go to book fairs, there's a nostalgia that's passed on to every generation that's participated in it. And there is a librarian out of Solanas in California that it's actually his idea. So he's trying to work with local breweries and coffee houses, for those who don't partake in alcohol, to have something like that. And we reached out to Scholastic. They're not ready for that, but I will take any suggestions to work around it. So that's something that we're tossing around too, because that could also be another fundraiser. So we're trying to like increase the passion and awareness. And Dana's amazing. She's a huge asset to our marketing and communications. So great job, Dana. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. So thank you, Trustee Mishner, for your idea. The other committee that I wanted to point out, because it started back up again, was our DEI committee. The notes you can find on page 67. Really, I wanted to mention the goals specifically, because the committee was paused for a time. We weren't able to have those 3 tactical goals that the rest of the committees were asked to put together after strategic planning last year with Dr. Meadows. So we felt compelled to make sure that we had that. Granted, after the election tonight, it could shift in terms of who chairs the committees next month, because historically that is the case. But we're kind of thinking that hopefully these goals will carry through to whoever is chair. More than likely, like, we might stay the same, but you never know. So we're really proud of the goals. The biggest thing is I wanted to give clarification to the trustees on the training recommendations. So NPL staff, the whole staff, from Julie to everyone, they have made a commitment to partake in a minimum of 3 DEI trainings, whether it's webinar, virtual, or in person, throughout a budget year. And that is a signal to us that the trustees should be following suit, because we're the leaders of the organization. We're the leaders for Julie, and Julie, is the leader for everyone in MPL. So we want to set that example and that tone. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to provide opportunities so that you'll be able to take, some webinars and, things like that in the DEI space. We just think that it's important to have that because it's a continuing education. It's not just a one and done. So we're hoping that everyone supports that commitment, so we can set a good example for our team. And then also, we are assisting in launching the DEI scorecard for MPL. Julie and the staff have been working really hard for the past several months actually on this. And because the committee was back up and running, she was able to bring it back to us so that we could talk about it again and kind of go through it. They're going to actually be taking it a step further, Julie and her team. I think there was only maybe 5 or 6 categories that ALA's scorecard put out. But MPL's taking it a step further and including all the categories that are involved with strategic plan, and that's events and marketing, building and grounds even, IT. So it was a really robust conversation, and hopefully everybody could take the time to kind of follow the notes. You don't see my name in there just because I'm taking the notes. I would rather shine the light on my colleagues when they give their comments. And then the other thing is bringing forth recommendations that amplify DEI and MPL strategic planning. We already have DEI put in the current strategic plan, and in this next budget year, we will be going forward with future strategic plan initiatives, because technically it's done in 2022 as far as the current iteration of it. So I'm sure all the committees will be involved with that, as well as community. It's going to be a process, but we're happy to be able to provide some guidance in that arena, and we're really excited to meet. And we already have a meeting set up. I just wanted to thank my colleagues, Trustee Mishner and Trustee Gurumurthy. It was amazing conversation. Nicole and Julie, thank you too. We got a lot of work done, so we're happy to hope continue with that in the future. So thank you for your time, letting me talk.
Okay. You'll need cough medicine later on, probably.
Yeah, I have a really husky voice right now.
That's okay. And I really do appreciate the goals, the fact that you have some worthy goals listed. That is great. All right, any other committee reports from Chair Preble, Chairman? No? Nothing. Okay, most of it's in the packet, so you can read that. And moving along, then we have, next up is the election of officers, and I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Bartlett to explain our duty here, how we're going to do this.
Okay, just wanted to clarify how the election of officers has occurred so far. We have nominated nobody for any positions. All individuals nominate themselves. So we know that the person has come forward and said, I want to do this job. So there's been no, saying, who's qualified, who's what. Well, all we did is send out an email saying, who responded, and the list that you have in front of you is who responded. What I've got is take one and pass it down. We have ballots because we have currently one person for each position except for vice president, where both Kat indicated a interest and so did Mark. And those two are listed. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor for anybody who wants to nominate someone else for any of the positions, and if you're voting for that person, there's a place on the ballot to put that write-in position for nominated tonight, because we have no printers here.
Okay. Really important, we cannot have a secret ballot. So if we write that, we have to actually be able to voice who we voted for.
Sure.
I actually have that bookmarked to make sure we do it right when I was president. Unfortunately, this part went wrong, so I guess I'll take the hit for that. But I decided that I need to know my stuff. And that's actually in the OMA on page 20. The OMA requires that all decisions and deliberations of a public body must be made at an open meeting, and the term decision is defined to include voting. The OMA prohibits a voting procedure at a public meeting that prevents citizens from knowing how members of a public body have voted. Obviously, the use of a secret ballot process will prevent this transparency. All board decisions subject to the OMA must be made by a public vote in an open meeting. And then just a note, it says a tie, in case you want to know, a tie vote on a motion means that the motion did not gain a majority, thus the motion fails. So that's super important. We got to do things right. But I would also like to nominate Kat Tooley if I can, because you mentioned that no one had nominated anyone. So I'll just throw my, what do you call it, hat in a ring, ring in a hat. I get them mixed up, but I think each they're going to work. So I would like to nominate Kat Dooley as vice president. And the reason why is because I've seen her work very hard when our illustrious president is away, and take over the meeting sometimes at a moment's notice. She's fair. She's been able to be very balanced and hear all sides. I also think she's put in the work, and I think that it's really important that we honor that. Now, I do think that Mark Starring is very qualified. I do think that he's coming in new, and this is not the board that it was when I entered, when he was already here. It's a different board. So I think getting used to that and understanding the lay of the land is important. So that is in no way taken away from you. I think, you know, I've sent mentors your way, so you know I think you're qualified. But I would say for this particular election, I think that the most qualified and the best for our board as far as unity, which I think is what we've been shooting for, is definitely Trustee Dooley. The way that you ran that DEI meeting, the way that you have stepped up to really be fair and to hear everybody on this board, and also listen to the community, the way that you've admitted mistakes you've made, I think that's going to be a big deal. And, you know, maybe Lee wants to throw some money your way if he's talking about a board like getting themselves together, right? Because you've done that. So I really have watched you, and I've been impressed. So I would like to, so you can put down that there was a nomination by Tara Mitchell with the pink mask on. Thank you.
So you're not really making a motion?
I would like to
Well,
nominate.
she's already nominated. Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
on this list is nominated.
It's already
Yes.
happening, yeah, okay. So I don't think we're in any problem with OMA, with this ballot, correct?
No, it's,
Well,
you,
as long as we state who
Yes.
voted for what. I wanted to send that out if people were uncomfortable, you know, saying, you know, and because last year when we did the ballots, because we were all remote, we all did one of these and we all signed it so that it was all, you know, legitimate and so forth. And so, again, we had, the last year we only had one person running for each office.
Right.
And we nominated them as a slate. Because there are two people for one office, and we also don't know if anybody else has any other nominations for any of the other, we would need somebody to move that we close the nominations before I can say that we only have one conflict here. Right now, nobody has said that they're, ready to close the nominations. If we close the nominations, we could vote, voice vote for everybody. It's no big deal.
It should be void. That's what I was reading.
Okay,
So-
that's fine, that's fine with me.
Question about that. Do we need to, this is for our attorney, do we need to voice vote per section, like separately? Per office? That's the ideal. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
Move
I-
to close nominations.
okay.
Do I have a
Okay,
second?
motion's been made.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second?
I'll second that.
Trustee Dooley made the second. Is there any discussion?
A motion has been made to close nominations. Trustee Gurmurthy,
Yes.
trustee Mitchner,
Yes.
trustee Stirring,
Yes.
trustee Bartlett votes yes, trustee Chair Curry,
Yes.
trustee Crawford,
Yes.
trustee Dooley.
Yes.
Okay, let's start with the president position. The nominee is Kathy Crawford. Why don't we just do a, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm just gonna raise my hand.
Motion still carries.
Okay.
You can if
No,
you
I won't count that. All right.
Okay, for vice president, all those in favor of Kat Dooley, please raise their hands.
I'm voting for myself, that's
That's
weird.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And all those in favor of Mark Stern? Okay, Kat has 1-4-0. Treasurer, Srini Cherukuri, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And finally, for secretary, yours truly, Brian Bartlett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the new officers are Kathy Crawford, Kat Dooley, Srini Cherukuri, and Brian Bartlett.
Okay, that was easy. Thank you very much. And congratulations or condolences, whatever is in order at this time.
A year from now, we'll know.
I want to thank you all for stepping up, and those of you that agreed to run, and even in our contested ballot, which was such a heated
Heavily
thing.
contested.
Heavily contested. So really, I do appreciate everybody's cooperation and everybody agreeing to take an office. We couldn't do it. We couldn't have a board unless we had officers for sure. So thanks everybody for stepping up. One thing I wanted to say is this would be the time, or shortly after the election of the president would be the time that the president is required to pick committees and pick chairs of committees, and people would submit whether they wanted to be on a committee or not. Right now, what I would like to do is just, since we have new people on committee and we've already made some shifts, I would prefer to keep the committee members the way they are. That would be my preference at this time, and also keep the chair people. However, if somebody would like to move to a different committee or would like to do something else, then I guess between now and the next meeting, would you please contact me? But I'm letting you know that what I'm thinking of keeping the committees the way they are. So if you have anything to say about it, then send me a message. Or you can say it now.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we give Trustee Gurumurthy a chance to have a chairship. So if there's anything you're interested in chairing, you should communicate that with President Crawford
Sure, at this
to
point.
make it official.
Yeah, no, at this point, I would like to sit in the committees, in fact, at 3 right now, and I would like to listen and watch and contribute first, and then, of course, I will be ready for the chair next year.
Okay, just because you're
Thank you.
contributing a lot and you're doing awesome, so
No,
I just
thank
wanted
you.
to tell you.
No, that is so kind, thank you.
Okay. All right then, moving along then to Trustee Mitchner, will you want to bring back the motion that you made last time to create an ad hoc committee for the purpose of creating onboarding procedure?
Yes.
So you're making the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll sec,
May I,
oh, go ahead.
May I present it?
Okay.
Kind of wrap it in a bow a little bit, so maybe I sell it a little bit better. Not that you didn't sell it well, but.
Well, just say the motion and then we'll have discussion after we get a second. So you can
I'm
discuss
trying to
it.
get to that second. But what I would like to say is I'd like to make a motion to have approval for an ad hoc committee for the purpose of creating an onboarding procedure for new trustees to the Novi Library Board.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. And now discussion.
Thank you so much. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do with this. I've been doing a lot of research since last time we talked. I appreciated everybody's feedback last time, which is why I asked for this to get tabled to this time. I wanted you all to think about it, but I also wanted to talk to other library professionals and also do some research on my own to see how could this be something that is beneficial to us. like I said, with Dr. Meadows' suggestion on like bringing in previous board members and all these other people, I think that we are qualified to set the stage for ourselves, but I also think that it could be a really nice, welcoming committee, and I think that that's something that also would be a soul piece that maybe we're missing, like we haven't always eye to eye, and that's okay, we don't always have to agree, we know this, but I do think that just having that welcoming spirit, I don't know if you've ever been new to a school and you've gotten bullied, this girl has, it doesn't always feel good, and I'm not saying that anyone has had that happen here, but when you're the new person, sometimes it does feel like you're clunky, or you're saying something wrong, or you're doing something wrong, or just even having someone that you can know that you can tap to understand something a little bit better. I think in the sense of libraries in particular, and I really want to underline that, it's something that I wish I had. Like I always look at Mark. Well, in the last month I've looked at Mark, right? You haven't always been here. But when I first got here, Mark was, senior to me, and I didn't know anyone up here, and I had to learn a lot of things on my own. And I think that throughout the 8 years, I've learned a whole lot. But I think that we can kind of give people almost like a little head start so they can find out more. And ad hoc. So if we hate it, we don't have to have committee meetings all the time. Ad hoc means it's as needed, right? Or for a specific period of time. But I do ask that you all consider it just to see how it goes. We can always evaluate if we loved it, or evaluate, maybe we change this into something else. But I would really strongly ask that you do approve this motion. I think it would be really good, and I think all of your feedback is welcome on it too. I don't want to make it something that's like divisive or hurtful. I think it can be a really good thing that brings forth the stability that I've heard asked for. So that's my pitch, y'all.
Okay, other discussion regarding this? Yes, Trustee Dooley?
So, I really appreciate that you brought this up and kind of pulled it out of Dr. Meadows' report, because when we met as a HR committee, we were kind of digesting and talking about it. One big concern is just bandwidth right now for the director, because she has to be in every single committee.
She doesn't have to be.
She doesn't have to be, that's true.
That's
true, I
Yeah,
misspoke.
that was said last time, and I just
That's
to really
true.
quickly correct that.
Yeah.
And I know you're a go-getter, so you come to these, but that was said, and that's not true.
Right, that's
So
true.
I want to make sure publicly we mention that is not a directive of any library board director ever, or library director ever, that they have to be at all committee meetings.
You're correct. That's
Yeah.
right. I don't want to misspeak, so I appreciate that. So I think that's just the concern because of staffing right now in general, but I don't want this to fall off either. And so I was wondering if you'd be amenable to HR committee taking it internally to that committee and making sure that we bring that transparency of the work to the board so that you can voice and make sure that it's doing what it should be doing to create an onboarding process. But then also, we should have, so one of the other concerns was brought up was the OMA. If there's so many trustees involved with an onboarding, we would have to have a public meeting. And then I had mentioned, well, maybe we should have more trainings that do involve public session. Part of that onboarding process could be a mixture of committee work and onboarding that doesn't involve quorum, but then also have public session where we have training all together as trustees. So two-pronged approach. So I just wanted to bring that up and garner your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think for sure we don't want to. No, I'm the one that's carrying around the OMA handbook on me. I'm a little nerdy on that piece, so I definitely don't want to break any rules there. That's not my goal. I think that if this doesn't get passed, although I hope it does, I would throw out to you all that at least I can come to the HR committee meetings on that topic. I know that we're always eligible to go to any committee meetings as long as we're not at quorum, per Library of Michigan and our rules as trustees. So if it's on that topic, I'd like to still be able to be a big part of that. I think especially being the person that's been here consistently for 8 years, the senior person in that regard, I think that's really important to have that feedback, because I've learned a lot along the years, and I'm doing the work as a library speaker and course creator now. When I first got here, I wasn't able to do that. I couldn't tell you anything about libraries on a bigger level, so I think that I could add something there. But I'd still ask us to consider it as ad hoc. Thank you. Did I answer your questions? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say in regard to the motion?
I know,
Oh.
her neck is.
Oh, okay. You're gonna have to be bolder. We'll have to, part of your onboarding, we should have talked to you
Yeah,
about
see,
that.
oh, there
Raise
it
your
is.
hand right up, or, reach out, so, yes.
No, just a few, this is important. I do want to say that the onboarding, even in the corporate world, we struggle for onboarding because, the employees are just thrown into the job. But I do want to say that, I did have a good onboarding. I had a couple, again, I keep saying my sons were like, why are you going to the library every single day now? You've not even had a board meeting. So I should appreciate what Julie and the team had done. But of course, as any process, CI, continuous improvement, and so it is important to put a nice onboarding procedure packet together. But I would support, just seeing how the HR and onboarding is like so much overlapping and you don't want to do silos. I think it is important to keep it under the HR committee, but have it as a separate goal or something so that it's tracked well. You have, but you can, as Trustee Mishner said, have that anyone from any other committee can join and provide feedback, whether more a monthly session with any other committee or right here. But it is important, but hopefully it's just within the HR committee.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I spoke out last meeting where I support the activity. I support what it needs to do. I do not support creating another ad hoc committee. One is the president has the ability to create ad hoc committees for something that is not a normal function. This is a normal function. And at one point, whenever this committee gets done, this has to go into our bylaws. This has to go into other parts of the procedure of how we transition. Because this is going to always happen, or the major portion of this is going to happen in a February-March timeframe. And if you take a good look at our bylaws currently on how this transition happens, just what we do now, they are a mess. They do not cover items in the bylaws. For example, on March 1st, 2022, there were exactly 4 people on the board of the Novi Library of Trustees. Exactly 4 people. They were Kathy Crawford, Srini Cherukuri, Kat Dooley, Tara Michner. That's it. That was the board of the Novi Library, because Jeff Wood had tendered his resignation. Tori Yu's term was up, it had expired, and he indicated to the board he was not coming back. I indicated to the board that I was reapplying, but my term had also expired. I was gone. Technically, folks, there is nothing in our bylaws that even says that I can do the function that I'm doing right now as secretary, because I was not a member of the board for 2.5 weeks. And here I am back here, because I also, at the same time, was elected to a term that ends at the end of May. It makes no sense. And that is all part of onboarding, and it is a common occurrence. Because we had 4 members on March 1st, 2022. If you go back to March 1st, 2021, that board had 4 active members. Among those things, we just had an election. What it says is in March, you come forward with a set of electors. You come forward, you have to fill 4 offices, and you have to fill 4 offices where nobody can have multiple offices. If you have 4 board members, the math is real easy, guys. I mean, you can forget about elections. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done and integrated in this thing. And it has to be integrated with the bylaws, it has to be integrated with onboarding, and it really belongs in either the HR committee with a suggestion or bylaws in a suggestion, in my opinion. And so I would support the effort, but it needs to be into an existing committee to essentially make this thing, a unified process. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Last month, I wasn't certain really what this was all about. I still think there's some uncertainty in terms of what it's all about. In terms of onboarding and making sure it's fair and proper and stuff like that, I certainly agree with that concept that it's fair and it's equal and everything. But I also somehow feel that this is directing attention and time to satisfy the board. And personally, I don't think I want to take the library's time. I don't want to take the director's time to satisfy the board as much as I want the director and the staff to satisfy the other staff and the residents of this community. Now, to the extent that things have to be done, I wholeheartedly agree it doesn't have to be done in an ad hoc committee. I think it can be done in the HR committee or in the bylaws committee. But to me, onboarding, it just sounds like make my experience as a board trustee pleasant or something like that. And that isn't what I think has to happen. I think we are elected or nominated and consented to by council because of who we are, and we're bright enough and smart enough to pick up what we're supposed to pick up. And what I've called an orientation session was wonderful. I was given all the tools, all the books, all the manuals, and everything else equally. Now, that doesn't mean I read them all, doesn't mean I understood them all, but I think I don't want to shift that responsibility from us as a board member to somebody else to make our experience pleasurable and wonderful. I think we have to kind of pick up ourselves and take it and run it ourselves. If there's something that we can do, as Brian was talking about, to get this timing right so that new board members are elected and in place to do the duty that they have to do, I'm certainly all in favor of that. But I don't think it has to be an ad hoc committee.
So if I can just respond, President Crawford, that is not what it is. So the way that you understand it is incorrect. I want to make sure we're clear on that. Not trying to please myself or pat ourselves on the back or anything like that. I did present this idea because the last couple of years we've had a lot of consternation. We've had a lot of things happening where people were doing things that are wrong. Today we almost had a vote that was illegal per the OMA. There are things that people on this board, yes, they're elected and they're eager and they're smart. I agree with that. But they're not necessarily library professionals, right? And you don't have to be on the board. But I do think there's some things that you do need to know to make sure that you don't get this library in trouble legally. And there's things that I've seen happen that have definitely raised eyebrows in that area. So I think that just to make sure you understand, this isn't to satisfy myself. I got other ways to do that. They're great. But what I'm actually speaking to more so is that we need to be library professionals, and we need to understand what the library laws are so we don't break them. Also board laws, also OMA. So I'm speaking to that piece. It's really easy to get ourselves in a pickle in lots of different ways. I don't want to disagree with your vote or how you'll vote. I'm not trying to even convince you anymore, but I do want to make sure you understand that what you said was not where I was coming from, that part.
Okay,
And if I can respond to that,
Sure.
I think the library professionals are not the board members. The library professionals are employees of the library.
Well.
I think we have to deal with that from a policy standpoint. And to the extent that we're concerned about making sure that we properly follow procedure, that we properly follow laws, that's why we have an attorney at our meetings to help us and to guide us if we should stray. I don't think any of us will ever become professional enough to know all of the rules that have to be followed at all the time. We do the best that we can. We try to follow them the best that we can. And if we, for some reason, omit something or stray, we have a lawyer at our table here who can guide us.
We have had lawyers at the table before that have directed us in ways that aren't the best, and not this lawyer here today, so Deb, that is not towards you. But we cannot rely on lawyers. We need to rely on our own common sense. So I disagree with that. We are professionals in library, and in the library, we are governing as trustees. So just to make sure we do understand what our role is. And we can get sued individually as well. I'll throw that out there as well. So we do need to know what we're doing. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't think we look to Julie to lead us. We are supposed to be her boss. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on those things in response to you.
Okay,
I think we're a general oversight board. We're a general oversight board, and that's how I look at it, and I think that's what Dr. Meadows said. We're an oversight board.
Dr. Meadows is not a board member, and we can get, I have
Okay,
looked into
could I
this
ask,
intensely.
could I ask to stick to the motion? Let's talk about the motion.
Yes, that's fine. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we understand what our role is.
Okay, I think that we do. One thing that I would like to say in regard to the motion anyway is that I would like to more clearly define the problem, that exists. If there is a problem with onboarding, I think, I don't want to be a solution looking to find a problem. I don't want to start with a solution. I would rather more clearly define onboarding, and if we do have a problem, and sort of know a little bit more about it. And I do feel, as I stated previously, that I feel that Human Resources would be the committee that's already in place that can address this issue and some of the other things. And I do believe a good suggestion about having board members come from other committees, maybe invite them as needed to come to the committee to discuss or share ideas and everything. Certainly, that's always welcome to any of the committees. And in this arena anyway, with this particular issue, I'm sure that everybody would have an opportunity to chime in and offer suggestions, and that's what we count on, really. That's what we count on. So okay.
Sorry.
Julie?
Yeah. I actually like the idea that Trustee Bartlett brought up with bylaws, especially because currently Trustee Michener's chair. And Trustee Michener's suggestion of being able to come to HR to bring in her expertise of the research that she's already done, I think that sounds like good synergy to me. And I'm hoping we can get that accomplished because you've already put in the work for this, and I don't want your voice to be diminished on that. So I want to make sure that, you're able to bring what you want to the table as a trustee visiting HR committee, but also your chair of bylaws. I think that would be a huge asset for this, instead of an ad hoc is what I mean. So.
Sure, I still want to see it go to a vote.
Oh, of course,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, we have to. That's following procedure, right?
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded, and we call the roll.
This is to,
The motion,
for an ad hoc committee. And-
yeah, to approve
Okay.
an ad hoc committee for the purpose of creating an onboarding procedure
Okay.
for new trustees.
Okay, Trustee Michener,
Yes?
Trustee Stirring,
No.
Trustee Bartlett votes no, Trustee Cherukuri,
No.
Trustee Crawford,
No.
Trustee Dooley,
No.
Trustee Gurumurthy.
No.
Motion fails, 1-6.
Okay, moving along. The second issue that we are going to be talking, or the next issue anyway, is Novi Library to continue the fine-free policy for the Novi Public Library with a scheduled review of the policy in May of 2023 by the Novi Library Board. Is there a motion? Yes? Member
Move to
Bartlett?
approve.
Move to approve. Is there a second? Okay, Trustee Michener seconds. Discussion.
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit about the motion that's on the floor. We have had various discussions on fine-free. We've had people ask for various metrics on, where the fines are, which individuals, all these sorts of things. And we have gone back and forth several times with TLN. TLN, For those that are not aware of it, that's the folks that give us our ability to share with other libraries. They are also our outsource for IT services. So a lot of the metrics, or at least catalog services, and also handling everything that it deals with late items, with fines, and with lost items. We basically passed a budget that included fine-free, so the financial portion was off the table. The last item that came up was, what do we do about lost items? Will this affect more items being lost or more items not being returned? We went to MLA. They've told us that, fine-free is in its early stage. They have no comprehensive studies. They have members that said there's absolutely no there's absolutely no effect. They also have members that say, well, yeah, there could be problems. So we have no consistent list. So what we did is we went back to our own numbers. And what we found is we have been fine-free essentially for 2 years. And our last year, we were up, and that's in your packet. In 3 quarters, we had 1 quarter that was about even. We had 2 quarters that were up fairly significantly, around 20%, more lost items. But we also recognized that we are, by default, telling the public, we're fine-free only because of COVID. We're not fine-free as a policy. We have not really marketed this to the public. We have not really said, here's what it is and here's what we want to do. So what the proposal is, today, the Novi Library is a fine library. So if we do not extend fine-free, we go back to fines. That's our default. This proposal would change our default to fine-free, but it would also charter the library board to 1 year from now, analyzing the lost items to see if we have stabilized the lost items. And the lost items right now are about as large a number as they have been, in spite of the fact that we're down in circulation. So we're not starting from a low point and saying, hey, you got to hit this low point. And it will also give the library a chance to market this to the public and to have a positive effect. So we're hoping that it is successful, but we are also asking the board to measure it, because we have a fiduciary duty to the community that says we have to protect the assets of the library. And that's both financial assets and that is book assets. So what the proposal is we will go fine-free. We will be fine-free as a default. So if the board a year from now says, hey, look, we have lost items, and 1 quarter they were up, 1 quarter they were down, the default position, unless we go back to fines, is fine-free. Our default for the library will be fine-free after this proposal. And that's basically what the motion is.
Okay, Member Chair Curry.
Okay, I didn't read the language that way, so if you. And my recollection of the committee meeting was that we were extending our fine-free under COVID status out further.
No.
So, but as I'm reading the language here, that term that now the new default is fine-free.
Yes, the recommendation is for you to go fine-free. We were fine-free until June 30th and waiting on a decision from this board.
Right.
So this motion here is to go fine-free, but asking the board to look at items that might be lost and what those numbers are a year from now to see what is happening, with that continuous fine-free status.
Okay, so as I'm reading on page 69, I apologize, maybe
This is already a fine-free policy. I will
Continuous
remove the
fine-free.
red at the top. Yes. There won't be any more dates or time limits.
So then I'll just make a statement. For those of you who know, I've been fairly engaged on the topic. I've done research on the background information, the data that drove it. Systematically, there is no hard data available either locally from our library, from TLN, or in the research papers that document anything beyond anecdotal. So we even had some anecdotes presented here. When our staff went and tried to find those cases within our data, they were also not verifiable. So we are going to be losing about $60,000 of revenue, if I recall, on some of the prior budgets when we adopt this. And in my opinion, that's 1.5 FTEs at the library. That's 1/3 of what we spend on materials. We have a budget that we passed that's already in deficit. So in the future, when cuts come, this is revenue that really, again, do we want to do good things? Yes, we want to do good things in a cost-effective manner. I don't believe it's a cost-effective manner. Thank you.
Just one clarification on the numbers. It is 60,000 in the entire budget. It's about 2/3 of it were fines, the other third is lost items, so it's about $40,000.
Okay, all right, yes.
Thanks. I have my hand up, but I know I'm all the way down here. So I made a note, but I want to speak to it too. I fully support this motion as it will make official what our community's been asking of us to do for months and will also put us in line with what the PLA is recommending. When I was at the conference, that was a big piece. But also just across the board, like, they're talking about it right now in Texas. That conference ended today, but, but they were talking about it this week in Texas as well. Fine-free is a big issue. It's been in the New York Times. It's definitely something that it's a place where our industry is going. And I think that that's really important to look at it from that aspect. So yes, I definitely support that. I would also like to ask that with regards to the lost items, we understand the difference between fees and fines, and I'm gonna go ahead and state that just for anyone who doesn't. So fines is obviously like if I check out this book and then I keep it forever, and then I bring it back, and you say, okay, now you owe me $3 because you kept it longer. Okay, that's a fine. A fee is I check out this book and they never see it again, right? So then I actually have lost the book or they just didn't get it back. So that would be a fee that I do get assessed. So I just want to make sure that we're clear. We're not, just for anybody's ears that's listening, new people or the public, understanding that we're not saying we want to give out free books, although I just gave you out free books. We also want to make sure that we understand that there is a fee that's going to be applied to each patron when they lose a book or they just don't return a book, and that does happen. So I'm not asking for that to go away in my statement, in my notes, and I don't think that's what the proposal is either, just to make sure that we're really clear on that. That being said, I think we have to be very careful when we speak about lost items with this topic because it gets fuzzy. Speaking of fuzzy, I definitely, when we track lost items, I think we need to do it as a percentage of items checked out as well. Because if we're over volume of items checked out, if that's increased, then of course we're going to have a potential for items that are lost to be increased. So I feel like that math isn't good from a narrative standpoint. It needs to be more specific and defined. Our data points need to be on point. Then it makes sense that the number of lost items would increase as well, right? So otherwise, if the data is not adjusted for volume, then we're not looking at the right thing. And I think it's really important that we look at the right thing. Otherwise, I fear our view of the issue would be skewed and could lead us to make inappropriate conclusions. When it comes to anything anecdotal and even finding out, was it this person, was it that person, there's protections for people, obviously, where we can't say, oh, was it this person that lost the book? Like their identity is protected under library law too, so just putting that out there. There's a reason why some of that information isn't disclosed. We have to make sure that we're taking care of the public as well. So those are my thoughts.
Okay,
Oh, I think Mark had his hand, I'm sorry.
yes.
Yeah, I was at the committee meeting, and I supported this at the committee because I believed it was provided for in the budget, and therefore it was consistent with the budget and somewhat consistent with the metrics that were available, but the metrics weren't all that convincing one way or another. I feel very concerned about the loss of the revenue that our library would be, whether it's 40,000 or whether it's 60,000, that is a significant amount. And as I understood the metrics, there are very, very few people that are not able to use the library because of our fine policy. It's almost a de minimis number, and I would believe of that de minimis number, there are very few of those people who can't use the library that even want to use the library. They moved on somewhere else or they don't care. I would support this, but I didn't think it was going to be the default. I thought it was one more year of an extension that we were going to continue for one more year. And I was willing to support it as an extension, but if that means now all of a sudden the default is it's going to be fine-free, because I supported it at the committee because it was in the budget, it was provided for, it was consistent. But the default part, I didn't understand at the committee, because I think it should still be going for one more year because of the COVID. And then we'll see what happens 1 year from now. But I don't like changing the default. I think this is one more, it should be one more, I mean, at least the way I understood it and the way I voted for it at the committee was that we were going to continue it for one more year because it was consistent with the budget and it was consistent with the metrics, although the metrics weren't that clear.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, Member Dooley.
Yes, Member Sturrig is correct. Our budget has been operating the past 2 years without fines, and we've actually been fine. We're using fine too much. We've actually been good with our budget, not having to suffer with a supposed revenue loss. So we're actually good. And also with regards to the budget being in a current deficit that Trustee Shara Curry brought up, those numbers look like that now, but then when it's shored up, we've been good and consistent with not having a deficit the past several years. So I don't want the trustees to think that we're, by going fine-free going forward, with how the motion stands right now, is gonna be a huge hindrance for us, because right now, it's not. We haven't been operating with it for the past couple of years. We've been fine. And, actually, when you think about the footprint of the amount of people that are coming into our community, and with the increased green light of residential properties that are being built, that revenue will be made up and then some. I don't want you to think that that line item is really going to impact us significantly, because it hasn't the past couple of years, and I don't think it will going forward. There are some things that are seen as revenue historically, but once you know more information, you reevaluate it and you're like, well, that's not how we want to have revenue brought in going forward. You take those reevaluation points and realize that maybe that wasn't good policy to begin with. And that's why the library industry is moving for fine-free. So I just wanted to make that clear, that our budget hasn't been in deficit when we actually shore up the numbers at the end of it. And we haven't been operating with this line item for the past couple of years, and we've been just fine. We've been able to do collections, we've been able to hire, and granted, we're reevaluating things with regards to, benefits and things like that, but we're good with the budget and the money. I think the board's historic, outlay with regards to fiduciary responsibility has been great. So I support this motion as it stands in terms of wiping out fine-free.
Member Chair Curry was next, and then Member Bartlett.
One, I'd like to agree with Member Stirring, that my distinct recollection is that because we were still in the state, still affected by the COVID emergency, that this was a continuation of the current COVID policy, not a reset of the default. And under those, so I want to be clear on that. There is some distinct misunderstanding. Of the four of us in there, it looks like two different people. There's two different sides to what came out of there. To Trustee Dooley's thing, the fact that we were not in a deficit was not due to the absence of these funds. It's due to the fact that we did not fill all of their positions. So we've ended up with a modest surplus because of vacancies. When those vacancies are full and we start to feel the impact, then that's what's called a layoff. I also want to advise the library professionals in this state are greatly conflicted on this. They're right, if you look in the budget page 18, you'll see right above our library book fines, right below it, there's item 658, which is state penal fines. So state penal fines are monies that we get from, I would say, most disadvantaged people in our society, who are having to pay all sorts of penalties for whatever crimes they may have committed. The MLA is vociferously against the diversion of those funds for any other purpose. And there have been a couple of poorer cities up north that have asked to use those things for they felt they were important. And the MLA has come out strongly against that. So we should also be, as a library organization, not be hypocritical, that if one set of funds can be done away with because it's impacting people, other funds similarly are impacting people. I guess I would ask, are you open to a friendly amendment that we follow the recollections of me and Mr. Stirring that this is a continuation under COVID for one more year?
Member Bartlett, you wanted to say something before that?
No, I just also wanted to make the comment about the budget. I mean, our budget is a deficit budget. And I've stated this multiple times, and it's really no secret looking at the way we finance things. And that is 2 out of every $3 goes to employees. That's our line item. I mean, our big line item is employees, and by not being at full employment, we basically have we basically aren't facing real live deficits. But that does not affect what we have to budget for if we budget for full-time employment. In fact, before the last budget, we actually had a discussion. Do we cut a person? And then move that salary, keep that salary into the budget for other employees to increase salaries because of inflation? That's also, but you have to budget for those things with real bodies. So if we were at full employment, we would be seeing the deficits that we've budgeted for. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So I don't want to have anybody in the public or anybody think that there's a level of comfort there because we haven't seen these deficits. They are there. They are in the budget. But because we aren't paying real live people, we're saving money, and that's not really what we want to do. Okay. I'm amenable to the proposal. I mean, the key thing is we need to there needs to be a promotion. There needs to be something to the public that said this is our intention, and it is still my intention on staying fine-free and getting these numbers down. The last 2 years, our circulation has been down compared to 2019, 2020, and that's why we also included those numbers. With the higher level of circulation, the number was down in items that are listed as lost, and that's why I wanted to focus on. And it's fine that we say, okay, we compare it as a percentage of circulation. It's no problem. What I'm saying is the board needs to take some attention to it and needs to look at it, because the important thing is we get our stuff back, not how much we charge people to get the stuff back, because we'd rather have the stuff back than charging someone.
So I have a couple of comments. Okay. Especially, I'm trying to look at this data and I'm trying to kind of analyze. I'm looking for more data. Maybe I'm missing something in terms of, I'd like to more see, okay, what's I'm fully supportive of the fine-free, but at the same time, cautious about the budget piece as well. So the first question is, the lost items, what is the trend? I know I see these numbers, but okay, what is the trend? And when you have these lost items, at one point, the patron has to pay for it. So what are those numbers? Compare those numbers in terms of what we would have charged as fines. Are these numbers more than that? Then, that also answers some questions. And then what is, again, going back to the trend of the number of items lost. So it's just like I'm trying to see if, especially the question is, lost items, when they pay for it, are we, kind of compensating for the fines? That's one question I'm not able to answer with these numbers. The second thing is the problem statement of this fine-free. I'm here right now versus when this was originally started with COVID. That's what I'm hearing, and it's a great thing. But now, what is exactly the problem that we are trying to solve? As one of the public member commented, it's because, the book is lying somewhere, my kid is, so I need more time. So is that the problem that we need to solve, or are people not able to pay the money? Is that the problem?
May I, please? If that's okay, I just wanted to mention one really quick thing.
Sure.
For Priya. It didn't come up just COVID. This has been on our table for, me and Director Farkas have been talking about this at our table, and Trustee Dooley for a very long time. So I just wanted to make that quick note. I don't want to barge in between someone else is having their hand up or anything, but I just want to make that note, that this is not just a COVID thing, although we implemented it during the pandemic. This is an industry thing that has been going on before the pandemic. And it is a very big topic, and there's a lot of opinions on it. As I think Trustee Chiricuri said, everybody's not always on the same page with it. But the majority of library professionals actually do believe that fine-free is something that is a direction that most libraries should probably explore going into for many reasons. I think Trustee Dooley mentioned some really good ones, that we shouldn't kind of hang our hat on people's poverty, basically. Because, yes, there was a comment about maybe not being able to find a book on time, but there's also sometimes disparities as well, especially with our aging population. Our seniors sometimes aren't able to get to the library in the same way. And if you're in Fox Run, or if you're in a different group where maybe you have those services conveniently allocated for you, that's great, but everybody doesn't have that, so. I
No,
hope that
thank you.
helps.
No,
So,
thank you.
did you continue on with your comments? Did you have more comments about
No,
it?
just to highlight a
Questions?
couple of, so the one thing for sure, I think with the budget, it would be very helpful to see how much with the lost items, maybe just to see how they both compensate each other. So maybe it is an issue or it's not an issue. And second thing is, I know it is proposed that we review April, May of like a year from now, but it would be very beneficial to at least have a quarterly kind of a trend analysis, like see the trend, how we are doing, both with the cost as well as like the numbers, with the numbers as well as the amount, as well, to see if we are going the right direction or not. That's all I have.
Okay, let me just say something first, too. I have just really been flummoxed about this issue, to tell you the truth. I've heard all issues, I've read a lot about it, I've talked to other libraries, I've listened to the comments from staff and our director, and I guess, I sort of mirror some of what everyone here at the table is saying. I'm concerned about the amount of money it is, whether it's $40,000 or more. I am concerned very much about inflation. I'm concerned about, we need the staff positions filled, but what will happen when we get the staff positions filled? How are we going to make up any loss of revenue? So, I've really thought a lot about this motion. I read this motion that this was just going to be a continuation, much like Member Stirring and Member Chair Curry. I read it much the same way. This would be a continuation with some understanding that we are going to be following the numbers and that we are going to, in a year, look at the fee versus fine. That's sort of what I was thinking it is. So I guess I'm also asking you if you would be willing to change your motion, and if the seconder would also be willing to do that.
I'd be willing to change the motion that says that it's a fine-free continuation, but part of the key part of the proposal is we are only focused on lost items. We are not focused on the fines for the fine, you're 2 days late, you're 5 days, the fine portion. The fine portion, the purpose of going through all the financial data that we had, this takes the fine portion, which again is not in the budget, off the table.
Okay.
This only gets us to the lost items portion. But the key is from, even on this board, over the discussions we've had, what's a fine versus what's a fee and all that sort of thing. We need to communicate that to the public We have to say, we are fine-free. We have to market that, okay, you will be automatically renewed twice. But then, if you do not return the item, and I think it's after what, 6 weeks?
9 weeks.
9 weeks. After 9 weeks, and your item goes into lost, and then you will be fined. That is what we are saying. But we need to make that a.
You be
You
feed.
have a fee, right, you have a fee.
Not
So-
fine, feed.
So we have to basically put out, market to the public that this is a benefit to them. You're not going to walk into the library and be nickeled and dimed, but you are still responsible for returning the item. And, the purpose of this is to get is to take all the numbers that we'd like to have, and we don't. We basically just have aggregate numbers from TLN.
Yeah.
And this is basically saying, okay, we're going to look at a year from now, the aggregate number, because we want our loss, we don't want people to look at the, at fine free and say, okay, hey, I don't have to return my item. We want our stuff back.
Yeah.
And this basically takes the discussion we've had, and a year from now, it's asking the board to look at one item, and that is where our loss status is.
So can I make a suggestion? If you're looking on page 69, which is the current policy, you would basically be changing the red language to June 30th, 2023, because it'll give you the year, which you need, and then we will also be looking at the data for the lost items. So it would need to be a friendly amendment to the motion, the way it's read currently. But what you would do instead is approve page 69 with an understanding of Novi materials due to COVID until June 30th, 2023.
Okay. Member Dooley, do you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just want to, thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make sure that we have that clear understanding of how to market it. Because the biggest thing is, I think the hang up with not marketing fine-free is because it was just hanging there as a COVID policy. That's the thing. If you really want to strike a chord and market it well, it should be as presented without the amendment and go forward as fine-free in totality, honestly. That doesn't, it's just basically because you're kind of dangling the public along, like year after year. And I know that I did find free, like I asked for an extension back in January, and the board was great to allow us to do that just because we wanted more metrics. But from a marketing standpoint, we're either gonna do it or we're not, And if we keep on forwarding it down the field, that's a marketing issue. And I think that's why we haven't been able to market it. So
Correct.
we really have to
Correct.
make that decision tonight and stand by it so that we can go forward with confident marketing plans.
So let me ask the director.
Sure.
Is there a way that this could be marketed successfully with an amended motion?
I need to know what that amended motion is. I'd
Well,
like
the
to hear
amended
it.
motion would just be taking out, it would be just like the motion says here, I think. Novi Library continues the fine-free policy for Novi Public Library with a scheduled review of the policy in April by the Novi Library Board as it affects lost items.
So just the current one now would allow us to do the marketing we want to do, where we would say, we really need your help. We've gone fine-free. We want you to realize that if you have an item at home, please return it back. Our biggest concern is to get items back in the building for others to use. Do you know what I mean? It's making sure that everyone has equitable opportunities for the materials. And then we would say, if you don't return a material, yes, there's no fine, but you will be charged for it. And then that stops a person from using the building anyways. There's a stopgap there from usage. We have certain thresholds that are set for when someone, their card reaches a certain amount of money, which actually is $15, that their card's blocked. A lot of books cost that or more.
Yeah.
So when you don't return, and the biggest thing is getting back the materials so that everyone else in the community can have the opportunity to have them.
Right. Member Mitchner.
Thank you so much. So, wrapping this all in, I think that the big thing that I heard Trustee Dooley say, and I'm also hearing up here, is just the marketing piece. That starts with us, and this is kind of where I was talking about, like, we need to definitely make sure that we understand what we're saying. We need to make sure that we understand what a fee is versus what a fine is, and actually speak to it that way. And I know every now and then it can be said wrong, but we gotta like push ourselves harder, because I think the community's gonna understand when we understand, right? So that's just a thought to throw out there. But I think that's also marketing. We're up here marketing, yes. So that being said, I mean, you know, we have Trustee, you look at you raising your eyebrows. We have Trustee Dooley, like marketing extraordinaire, right? Not trying to put this on your committee or anything, but is there a fun way that we can kind of like?
It's already been done. It's been talked about for us. We're just waiting.
Okay, yeah, so.
We're just waiting for some direction.
So you're saying you like it, is what I'm hearing. Like, if we can make this a fun thing to talk about, but also making sure, in addition to that, is that people do understand fees are different than fines. Because I think, yes, I'm so glad you nodded your head, Trustee Bartlett, because I was backing you up here. I think your big thing is like, we can't keep losing all these books, people need to understand. So ultimately what I'm hearing is just education, understanding that we're not giving you free books. That's not the goal here. The goal is understanding that we're not going to charge you every time, you know, you're late. So I think, I like that idea. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, where are we here? Yes, Member Stirring.
May I suggest this is the friendly amendment? It would read, the library board approves the continuation of fine-free status, adding the words for late items on overdue Novi materials due to COVID-19 until June 30, 2023. This does not eliminate cost for lost items.
Can you say that again? I apologize.
The library board approves the continuation of fine-free, adding for late items, on overdue Novi materials due to COVID-19 until June 30, 2023. This does not eliminate cost for lost items.
And then if you have fees in parentheses, at least because that's what it's called, right?
You could say this does not eliminate fees for lost items.
It's actually in those bullet points, though. I mean, it tells you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all fees, it says overdue materials are considered lost and will be billed. So when I think you'll want to read those bullet points to know that it's in there right now. How this policy reads is just fees for damaged, destroyed, or lost items. That's it. We're not talking about fines anymore.
Right, okay.
No more. But if you're needing that time frame, I think is what I'm hearing there, you know, from some of the trustees, is that you're looking for that June 30th, 2023 timeframe for another year due to COVID.
Well, I don't know if it's due to COVID as much as
Exactly.
it's just an
I-
understanding.
That's the one part, I mean,
Yes.
I agree with everything in the commentary.
I
I
would
would
agree.
like to strike the words due to COVID.
Yes,
Because
agreed.
COVID,
Totally.
COVID these days just
Yes.
does nothing but add confusion. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
completely. Agreed.
That's just my opinion. Because, I mean, whether they say that there's a COVID problem or not a COVID
Yep.
problem, we're extending it to June 30th.
Okay, Member Dooley.
So I agree with you, Trustee Bartlett. Basically, I mean, as it's read, as you already have it, you've baked a time frame in for reevaluation. We actually have an extension to that reevaluation technically by adding the verbiage June 2023.
Yeah.
So that would be the actual amendment, is the time frame.
Yeah.
As you stated your motion, it just makes sense. That's what we're all asking for.
Okay, yeah.
We had to get back to.
All right, Member Stirring.
But the default status is what?
Wait a minute, yeah, Member Stirring.
Well, I read the bullet points, and the bullet points, we're trying to distinguish between not having fines for being late, but charging fees for not returning things. But when you look at the third to the last bullet point, It says cancellation or suspension of borrowing privileges may result from abuse of library materials, policies and procedures, and repeated late returns of material. To me, repeated late returns of materials is what you would normally charge a fine for. So I find that very misleading, that we might suspend somebody's privilege, but there's not a fine for being late. I think that's inconsistent.
That actually can be struck.
Good idea.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Thank you.
Because
Trustee.
otherwise, the bullet points are consistent with the difference between being late and there's no fines and being a fee if you don't return it.
That's an excellent
Good
point.
catch.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
what's the
the
motion?
motion is going to be, would you give us the motion? I think we're ready for
The
the
Finance
motion.
Committee recommends that the Novi Library continue the fine-free policy for the Novi Public Library until June 30th, 2023, with a scheduled review of the policy in April, May of 2023, as it affects lost items.
And then I'd like to add, if you're looking at page 69, I will change the red, I will remove COVID, not the due to COVID-19, and it will state materials until June 30th, 2023. In the third bullet point to the bottom, I will remove repeated late return of materials.
Okay,
Happy with that?
okay. And our seconder, are you okay with the motion?
I'm okay with it. The seconder is
Okay.
okay.
All right, I think we're going to call the roll now.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes. Trustee Chair Curry?
No.
Trustee Crawford?
Yes.
Trustee Dooley?
Yes.
Trustee Guramurthy?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner?
Yes.
Trustee Stirring?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay, that was easy.
That was good conversation. That's what we
Yeah,
need
that's
to do.
good, yeah, that's right, that's right. Okay, the next policy that we are going to be looking for a motion for is the no smoking and / vaping policy. I hope you all had a chance to take a look at that. And I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve that policy.
Okay, we have a
Aye.
motion to approve and a second.
I
From
second.
Member Kurabati.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Okay. All right, Member Bartlett, please call the roll.
Trustee Chair Curry?
Yes.
Trustee Crawford?
Yes.
Trustee Dooley?
Yes.
Trustee Guramurthy?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner?
Yes.
Trustee Stirring?
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, moving along for,
Smoking in the boys' room is officially outlawed again.
yeah. So now we're going to dress code. You better pay attention to this one. Dress code. And I will also entertain a motion to approve the dress code policy as it's written. Member Stirring, were you going to make that motion? You look like you were.
For the dress code?
Yes.
I'll make the motion for the dress
Okay.
code.
And we have a second from Member Dooley, I believe, was going to second the motion.
I am going to second it. How'd you
Okay.
know?
And now we'll have a discussion. Yes, Member Mitchner.
Thank you so much. So I found the dress code stuff problematic based on a lot of the things that, in a former life, I was in HR. So there definitely was some slippery slope things there, and I'll note what those are. But then also at the PLA conference, this was a big topic that actually came up not only in my presentation by my co-presenter, which is Claire Membiola at Library of Michigan, but also by other library professionals, and they actually had forums on this in particular. So just a few notes that I made. Dress codes in general are problematic and introduce a whole host of equity issues. I think we really need to be really careful with this one. There's situations where you really want to think about, is this leaning more towards females and policing what they're wearing? The words acceptable even in here and unacceptable tying into good personal hygiene, clean, well-groomed appearance. Who makes a decision if something violates this policy, if this policy is violated? Who says that your hygiene is better than this person? I mean, I've got sanitizer on the table, so you might say, wow, Tara has great hygiene, but that doesn't mean everybody has to have sanitizer on the table. So we want to be really careful. Well-groomed appearance. I had braids at the last meeting. Some people for years said that that is not a well-groomed appearance. It just got approved this year. The Crown Act just passed in 2022. Some people said that wasn't well-groomed. So we really want to be very careful not to be discriminatory with any of these policies, especially when it comes to what we are wearing and what we are looking like on the outside. We do vary, and that's okay. Monitoring skirt and dress lengths, let me tell you something. I have on some really high heels right now. So if I stand up right now, my skirt or my dress is going to look a certain length. If I take those shoes off, you will think, wow, that dress is pretty long because I'm short. Outside of that, though, if I gain a few pounds, this dress will also rise up more. If I lose weight, it'll look different. I think we have to be really careful. Those are just some examples I'm throwing out that are realistic for women trying to fit into a professional standard in the workplace. Those are things that we go through that have been big topics, actually, specifically on this issue, equity-wise. The flip-flop, oh my goodness. So I've actually used this in a presentation more than once with Library of Michigan over the summer, but also this ended up in my PLA presentation, and Claire actually provided some knowledge on it too, but I'll speak to why a flip-flop policy is something you want to really think about. So a lot of people from different cultures may or may not wear shoes in the home or think that it's a good idea to wear shoes in the home from a cultural standpoint. Flip-flop is a really good in-between, so a lot of people might feel more comfortable wearing a flip-flop inside of a library building than a regular shoe. So that's one issue that's equity-based. But then from an economic standpoint, the big thing that we ran into at our presentation, and we literally gave this example, is what is considered a flip-flop. And we talked about the issue with that is that I could run to Target and get my pedicure flip-flops, although I do not have a fresh pedicure, but I could get my pedicure flip-flops from Target that are like $1 or $2. And you might say, well, Target, those are definitely flip-flops. But then I could like maybe be on the come up or whatever and get some Kate Spade shoes that are open toes and are technically flip-flops, but they look nice subjectively to somebody or someone. So that's a really tricky one too from an equity standpoint. We just put ourselves in a liability issue. I would say if we're thinking about some of these dress code things, we want to do some more research. I don't think we should vote on this tonight. I think, I just want to continue, please. I have the floor. So how you determine if something's athletic, athleisure, or workout apparel, that's also a really big one too. You want to think through that. And then in general, the policy seems to police feminine fashion, like I said, and appearance more harshly than that of male counterparts. So really thinking through those things too. Also, as we are becoming more, non-binary, you also want to think about how does this tie in as well. So definitely a lot of thoughts on that.
Could I ask the director, does this mirror any of the policy from the city?
I didn't
The city?
review
Okay.
the cities. I'll be happy to pull it. Sure.
Okay, just wondering. Yes, Member Stirring.
Well, obviously, this was a policy in 2016. We're looking at some amendments here. I'm not really sure what the amendments, but has this really been much of an issue, Julie?
No, it hasn't. That's why, we have a staff committee that looks, so there's a review from a number of staff that do participate in the review of this. It just doesn't come from me and Nicole. We have a committee. The flip-flop actually comes up specifically because of the amount of carts that are in the building with people working with them and then hurting themselves with their feet, which is why we don't say flip-flops, because we don't want someone to hurt their toes and then have an injury on the job.
That conversation, yep. Even in the library think tank that's online, that conversation has come up specifically.
So it's not that we don't want people to wear them, we're encouraging them not to because of injury, and them hurting themselves with the types of things we know they're working with in our environment.
Well, plus we have employees actually that are going out
We
to,
do.
like to Fox Run and to other places, and they're driving, and, I think it does become a safety issue.
I'm just
for
letting
sure.
y'all know that.
That particular item,
I'd
but,
be happy to go back and if, with PLA and if there's things specific and look through it for you if you would like that. This is not something that's pressing at this moment.
okay,
If
Member
we don't
Dooley?
adopt this, there is a dress code right now.
We do have one, yes, yes, and it's
And it's probably this.
similar to this.
Okay.
For now.
Okay,
It's
Member
something
Dooley?
to think about, for sure.
Member Dooley.
Well, I really do appreciate Trustee Missioner bringing up what she learned at PLA, but also looking at it from the DEI lens. In our HR committee, we looked at this, but maybe if President Crawford's amenable, because she's chair of HR, maybe we should table this policy tonight and bring it into DEI committee to take a look at it from that standpoint, because if there is equity issues verbiage-wise with regards to gendering policy towards female versus male, our committee could probably help workshop that out and then bring it back.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, this is the kind of thing that if you had 6 people in a room, 6 people are going to have different opinions
Sure.
about every one of these things. I mean, this is going to be like herding cats to get everybody here to agree to, the length of dress or whatever. So I think that we're going to need to pull some materials perhaps from what the city policy is and maybe a couple other libraries our size and see what they do. And then I would be in favor of waiting on this particular policy until we have more information. And HR will be willing to take this into our committee and discuss it. And then we'll bring it back.
That sounds great.
Okay?
With the
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Sure.
This only applies to employees, not to our patrons.
Employees.
Is it,
yes.
right, it's an HR,
And
an HR
volunteers.
policy.
This is employees,
It
for
also
sure.
says volunteers,
Volunteers.
Yeah, and
Yes.
volunteers. Yeah,
though. Yeah.
okay,
Would you be okay if DEI looks at it too then?
sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I just
that's
wanna make
fine.
sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. All right, then we know what we're doing with that. And rules of conduct. This is the next policy that we're going to take a look at, and I hope you all had a chance to read through this, and I will entertain a motion to approve the rules of conduct. Are there any changes in this?
Well, I gave you the changes last
Yeah,
month, so
okay,
this is,
yeah,
this
okay.
is what you
But
would be
there's
approving.
All right,
Yeah.
because we have had a chance to take a look at this before. This isn't new. Anybody want to make the motion? Member Bartlett, did you want to
Sure.
move? Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second from Member Chair Curry. So we have a motion and a second. Now we'll discuss. Yes, Member Mitchner.
So, this one similarly I had some issues with. I have a couple of concerns with this policy as written. There's just a few bullet points actually, that stood out. And that's, why are we asking employees to refrain from sharing personal concerns and or hardships with other employees? I think that we have to be careful with policing just random conversation and connection. There's been times where I've even stepped in here, getting myself together, and I might mention to Trustee Dooley what's going on in my life, or, a hardship could be one of those things that's also not hard and fast. I think that there's a lot of hardships and personal concerns going on in the pandemic time, so people might even say, oh, my son was sick, or, oh, the bus was late, or whatever the case may be. So I think this is a hard and fast policy. I don't see how this creates morale or community or teamwork. And I think if we're losing people, this is gonna continue to make them do it if we police what they can say, especially if it's not something that's like, salacious, right? So that would be my first thought there. The other bullet point that stands out is libraries by definition are open and free spaces. I will speak this from the rooftops every day of the week. Libraries are open and free spaces to all. So if employees, after they get off their shift, wanna hang out by the fire, they wanna sit in the cafe, they should be able to. I don't think that we should enforce prohibiting them from being able to be at the library while on duty. They might wanna go to a program, they might want to use the bathroom, I don't know. They should be able to do it all. We can't take away their right to be in a library. That's a very slippery slope right there, especially under library law. I can go to, I'm not a member at Ann Arbor Library, but I can go to Ann Arbor Library and hang out all day if I want to. If I work there, I should also be able to have that right and not have that taken away. So those are my two concerns with this policy specifically. Nothing else was a big concern for me. Those were very big concerns that I think will get us in a little bucket of hot water that's unnecessary. And also equity issues again.
Okay, what is this, where is the second bullet point that you were talking about? Where is it?
So,
It's towards the bottom,
you got it already, or?
fifth from the bottom.
Thank you.
Can I presume that was intended to
Loitering.
be like an employee spaces? Like
Loitering.
workstation when you're out of work, or where?
That's not what it said.
No, it
If
doesn't
that's
say
the
that.
case,
Okay. No, you're correct.
okay.
Oh, yeah, Director Parks, I mean, does it implicate that you don't want to hang around at their desk?
I
you looking at number 5, loitering at the library while not on duty?
Yep.
Yeah, and that actually came up because we had staff who then came off shift, and then they were actually keeping people from doing their job who were on the clock. Meaning,
I get it.
someone wasn't working anymore, but yet they were sitting with someone who was, and then that person wasn't working.
So you're concerned what they're staying in the workstations where they're assigned work location, not the public areas of the.
Right, exactly. Where it hinders somebody else from doing their job or something. So we can
Yeah,
write it a
reword
little
it.
differently, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
for that.
For that issue, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask about, because, we reviewed this together, but, Trustee Misher brought that up about refraining from sharing personal concerns. We probably should reword that too, like
Yeah.
now that I
I'd
look
like
at
it
it.
reworded.
Yeah.
I
What was the idea behind it? Was there issues?
when you have someone come to you from an employee that feels like they're being burdened by someone's stories and information that it might be too hard for them, it was a way to then maybe sit with the other person and say, hey, so-and-so, said you came to them and was sharing some information and it was uncomfortable for them. So it comes to that way, so I think we can rewrite it.
And I think the other thing is now we have a HR specialist too, and that falls under her territory, yeah.
Yeah. So if this table's no problem.
Yeah.
Well, what I heard, the comments that I heard so far is in bullet point refraining from sharing personal concerns. I think if you would add to that, refrain from extensive sharing. I mean, somebody says the school bus is late, so what? That's not a big deal. But someone who constantly complains about how miserable their marriage is at work every day to their coworkers gets on the nerve.
And that's
And
where
that's
it
the kind
actually
of thing,
came
it's the extensive thing, not an occasional. And I think in regard to the loitering comment, I think if you would just change that to say loitering at workstations while on duty, that eliminates the concern about being in the library, but it's the workstations. And, I mean, that's what I heard so far that needed some fine tuning. Now, I don't know if there's anything else, but I would offer that as a friendly amendment if the rest of it is acceptable to my
Okay.
co-trustees.
Any other discussion? Member Bartlett, did you raise your
No,
pin?
no.
Oh, okay.
I would-
Don't raise your
if we're
pin.
If we're looking to propose this, I would accept that as a friendly amendment,
Yeah.
because both of those things make a lot of sense.
My only concern is, and I deal with a lot of people, unfortunately, that deal with death, right? So if somebody came in and they started crying because they had a loss or something like that, that's extensive. So my thought process is like, would they then be breaking the rule? Yes. Are there exceptions? Maybe, but written here, they would be breaking the rule and they could get dinged because of that. I think it's a little, extensive is subjective, it's not a measurement. So it's a little tricky, that's my only issue. And I think also, it's always like the eye of the beholder, yes, because like, I might be more sensitive to certain issues being a mom of an 8-year-old than I would be if I was a mom of an 18-year-old, because I don't have an 18-year-old, never had a teenager yet, right? So I think that's the tricky part when it comes to that specific one, where it can get subjective and tricky. You know what I mean?
So I have a question. So has this been since 2009? I see the first approved.
Yes, yes.
So it's not been a concern.
I think you have to consider both employees, not only the person that's suffered the hardship and wants to talk about it, but the other person that's trying to do their job.
I agree.
And I think that's where the word extensive, and maybe it is subjective, but it's like you've gone too far. You haven't, you're disrupting the other person. It's not you're sharing some difficulties, but you're disruptive.
So how do we make that like plain? I hear what you're saying and I'm on board with you, but how do we make that more plain where we are protected?
What suggestion would you make? What words would you use to make that clear?
Yeah, I'm trying.
I personally wouldn't put this in the policy, just because, and keep in mind, your job is very different from mine professionally, right? But I think that there are times where people might have to share concerns or hardships, even to just get somebody to cover their shift or things like that. I think it's very tricky how it can tie in. I can see a lot of different scenarios. So I would not have this as the policy at all. But obviously, if someone's not doing their work and they're being excessive, or they're doing something that maybe falls into another one of these bullet points because of it, that's where, like, for instance, if it falls into bullying, harassment, fighting, or assault because of this issue, that might tie in there. I don't know. It depends on what the subject matter is. So I do think it's tricky. Even the intimidating another important employee is in here, threatening is in here.
So this has been in the policy, though. It's been in the policy because it was brought forward because we had a problem, right? I mean, that's why we put it in the policy, because this has come up in the past?
I inherited this, so this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but I mean,
Okay.
we've used it where, we would be able to sit down with someone and say, hey, we've had an employee come to us. They said that you've shared a few times, they are worried that they're not getting their work done because you've come over and you're sharing some things that are pretty personal that make the employee uncomfortable. I mean, I'm giving examples like that so that you
So
have
it's
a
not a
talking
repetitive
point.
thing? It's not a repetitive thing necessarily?
Well, no, it would become repetitive is when the policy comes in place.
Okay.
This might happen once, right? No big deal. It's really how the person, if they come to him and go, I'm not getting my work done every day at 3 o'clock, she gets a call from her husband. I'm literally just making this up. But she gets a call from her husband, and then she comes and tells me the whole conversation, and it's so bad, and it's an hour. If that happens every day,
Yeah.
I'm just giving Tara, I'm making it up. So there's.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
I know, well, you're on, so I.
Well,
just
I
wanna
was
make sure.
listening to you.
But do you know what I mean? These things happen, personal things happen, but at what point is it something that it affects productivity?
Right.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And can help either side, like Trustee Stirring has said.
Okay, Member Dooley, do you have anything? What we're looking for here is a way that we can get this policy going. So I'm looking for things that either
I can
wording
come
or
back.
something.
I think it's.
Member Dooley?
Sure, through the chair. When we added the extensive, I think that's what you said, Member Stirring, I
Yeah.
did have a bad gut feel about that too. The thing is with HR policy, I'm sorry, Julie, because this was our committee, and
okay.
I'm sorry we're workshopping it now.
Yeah, that's all right.
But it's good
Yeah,
too.
right.
When I'm thinking about conduct at the privately held business that I work at in corporate world, we have to go through extensive harassment training. And I think when people have what's uncomfortable and it can make people uncomfortable, that usually those conversations fall under harassment actually. So this specific bullet point of where it's worded, it is reading a little problematic right now. So I
let's
think
workshop it.
let's workshop it because people at work, we talk about stuff all the time.
Right.
But in the event that someone else does get incredibly uncomfortable, that does or could fall under harassment, depending on what the topic is, but it tends to go there. So maybe we gotta rethink that.
I'm
I would
totally fine with
table
that.
it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Good discussion.
All right, we're all in agreement, right? All right, moving right along then, we are going to be asked to approve the policy, the locker pickup and drive-up window services.
This is already a current policy, but it's in two. As you can see on page 75 and 76, it's B6 and B7, after hours holds, and then drive-up window service. We're combining them. I met with our staff policy committee, and we're trying to clean up policies. We're combining the two because they're two services we provide. One thing that is coming out is appointments. We were doing that during COVID. We don't need to be doing that. And we have a better system in place now where we've taken out some language that doesn't need to be in the policy any longer. That's really all it is just a cleanup. This is current policy or two policies that can be put into one, but serve and nothing's changed in terms of the type of service or anything.
Okay.
Just cleaning up some language.
Okay, everybody
So-
understands that this is just combining the two, and it's a cleanup? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve. Okay, Member Chair Curry and Member Mishner, seconds. Discussion. Anyone have anything they want to say about it? I'm surprised. Okay, here we go. All right then, call the roll.
Trustee Crawford,
Yes.
Trustee Dooley,
Yes.
Trustee Gurumurthy,
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner,
Yes.
Trustee Stirring,
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes, Trustee Chair Curry.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along to communications. You had a chance to read the communications, and I would call your attention, of course, to the future events that are coming up, and Spring Palooza is coming up at the library, and I'm assuming, once again, we'll have a booth, right?
It's at the city, but yes, the library will be there.
Yeah, okay. All righty. Anything else for the good of the library? Board? No? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mitchner and Bartlett. Mitchner and Bartlett, saw him first. It sounds like a dance team. Okay, any discussion about adjourning? No. All right, call the roll.
Trustee Dooley,
Yes.
Trustee Gurumurthy,
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner,
Yes.
Trustee Stirring,
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes, Trustee Chair Curry. Trustee Crawford.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.